You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Happy to have you with me here today. Looking forward to today's show. Oftentimes, we're doing a Training Thursday where we're covering all things exercise, fitness, transforming the body. And today, we're taking a step to the side and we are doing a Toxic Thursday because there's been a lot of questions on where are some of these environmental toxins coming from that I could be ingesting or getting into my body that I may not know of. So today we're going to go over heavy metals to avoid in your home, namely your kitchen. So these are things that we're all being exposed to. The good thing is that for the most part, we can do an easy substitution, easy one-for-one to make sure that we have less of these toxins in our life. So we're going to be mainly talking about heavy metals. We're going to be talking about how easy it is to be exposed to lead and mercury and cadmium and arsenic just from the typical day-to-day activities that we do. And again, just in our home, we're going to talk about today. In the rain barrel effect, I talk about toxic home syndrome. I talk about toxic workplace syndrome. I talk about heavy metals. I talk about all those things. We're going to narrow down on today what are the main sources that we can simply do less of, or what we can do is a simple one-for-one substitution. So let's get right into it. What I want to do is kind of go step by step through the different ways that you could be exposed to these items, and then just make sure we have easy substitutions because I know that we're not just going to give them up completely. All right, so the first one we want to talk about, real simple, real easy, is tap water, right? So a lot of times we're using tap water, and a lot of us use a water filter. I spoke about the Berkey last week. I did a big review in my Friday review. Check that podcast out if you'd like. That was on episode 1022. 1022, I talked about the Berkey filter with the water and arsenic-based filters. And the day before on 1021, I gave my top holiday season holiday gift picks for 2018. So check those out for this holiday season. Now, today, what I want to talk about, though, is, yes, we're using a lot of great water filters. Sometimes we're even using spring water, and all of that is fantastic. But the problem is that we're using a lot of time, people are doing tap water for their coffee, or tap water for their tea, or tap water for their ice cubes. And so we're still getting a decent amount of tap water in our diet, which is our diet is simply what we eat, right? What we put into our body. Well, think of it this, though, that from your pipes that are coming into your home, a lot of time they're PVC plastic, so we're getting some of those plastics, without a doubt. We're getting some BPA, or we're getting some PCBs. We're getting things from those pipes. But we're also getting in some of the heavy metals. Now, some of the biggest culprits for heavy metals in tap water, and again, this includes the shower, but we're kind of focused right now today on the kitchen, is we're getting lead, we're getting copper, because sometimes there's copper pipes, right? And sometimes there's lead pipes. But we're also getting aluminum. And the reason I want to mention aluminum as well is we do so much hair tissue mineral analysis testing, and we've seen that aluminum is usually the highest on any of the toxic heavy metals for people. Now, mercury is sometimes a close second, but typically aluminum is the big one. And that's because there's so many sources of aluminum. I'm going to be going over them today. And again, in the rain barrel effect, I did speak about all the different cosmetic, deodorant, and body products that contain aluminum as well. So here's why in tap water that it's one of the larger sources. And that's because, you know, the water safety and the water public safety parts of each city knows that there's mercury and they know that there's lead in the water. So when they're treating the water, what they're often doing is treating it actually with aluminum. And aluminum can actually bind to a lot of these other metals, and it can drop them down to the bottom of the water tank. It can be filtered out, etc., etc. Now, what can also happen, though, is that whatever's left over, whatever it hasn't bound up, you get that aluminum in your water itself. So for whatever reason, we consider lead to be a real toxic issue, but we're never really considering copper, and we're not considering aluminum to be a toxin, which it absolutely is. Both of them affect the nervous system. Both of them can create autoimmune-based issues, and absolutely both can affect the brain. The other part, I'd say a fourth part to that, is they can create oxidative damage, free radical damage. What does that cause? Well, it causes aging. It causes a breakdown in tissue of the body. It can cause a degeneration of the skin, the hair, the nails. So we start to look like we're aging faster. Now, that's actually happening from the inside, but we see it on the outside. And that's why it's so important to actually look at what's going on the outside of the body. That's a small indicator of what's going on with the inside. Now, something like a hair tissue mineral analysis, you can actually test what's going on in the inside because your body's excreting these heavy metals out through your skin and through your hair. All we're looking to do is pick up what the hair is saying. Now, the thing is, this technology, this has been around for decades. They use it in the FBI for testing. They use it in the Olympics. So hair testing is not new. It's just new to the world of essentially lab testing. That's all. But we've been doing it for many, many years to check out what's going on. So tap water is a big one. And again, with tap water, what do we want to do? Well, you can go back and you can just simply go to StephenCabral.com and type in water filter. If you type in water filter, you're going to see my top picks, whether it's the Berkey, whether it's the Therasage, the Thera2O, or whether it's reverse osmosis, a whole house filter. You'll see all of those. And then if you type in shower filter, you'll see the shower filters I recommend, so you're not breathing in all of the chlorine and all of the fluoride-based vapors and gas, because those are coming through your faucet in your tap, which does what? Well, it's worse if you breathe it in through your lungs as a vapor in your shower, but terrible if you're swallowing it, because it can destroy a lot of the good bacteria in your gut as well. So really important to look at those. Fine to have all those things in the water, but we need to filter them out, right? Of course, if I had the choice between some chlorine and Giardia, I'll choose the chlorine, and then what I'll do is I'll filter out that chlorine. So that's a big one. That's how I look at it. All right, let's move on to the next one. A lot of our flatware, our silverware as we call it, is not made from silver, right? It's actually made from lead and contains cadmium as well. Well, no big deal in the beginning, but what happens is over time and cutting on plates and all of those things, we get those little filings that come off, and this goes for your spatula and this goes for your pan as well. It's actually aluminum. So why don't I lump them all together? When you use this aluminum pan, an aluminum spatula, or a aluminum or lead-based knife that has some plating on it, you're actually getting those filings right into your food. So microscopic, but they still add up over time. Again, none of these things are usually an issue in the short term unless there is something that contaminated your water, but over time, they build up. That's what I want to warn you about today, is they build up over time. So again, why is this important? Because they create oxidative damage. With metals, think of oxidation. Think of rusting, right? So when you think of rusting, well, what does that mean? Well, you can't see it going, you can't see the rust going on in the inside of your body. But what you can see are more of the age spots on the skin, the wrinkling, the fatigue, the brain fog, the weaker or more brittle hair, skin, nails, the thinning of the skin. And all of these things, again, add up over time. So what do we do? Well, pretty simple. We could use, there's some great new ceramic-based pans. There's glass-based pans. There's cast iron-based pans. There's stainless steel-based pans if you want. And there's copper-based pans. So all of those can work. And then for spatulas, I'm a huge fan of just using a bamboo spatula. And actually, bamboo flatware, just for everyday use, works great. Very reusable, and also it's sustainable. You know, you can use bamboo and you can throw it out if you need to every 6 months or so, because it's, well, you recycle it or compost it or whatever you're doing, but it's a lot more sustainable as well for the environment. So a great thing to do. And again, you can just check your flatware as well in case you still want to use that metal flatware. That's okay. Let's just make sure it's more of a stainless steel base, not containing lead or cadmium or any of the other heavy metals, non-aluminum based as well. Okay, next up that I want to share with you would be, you know, this is a big one. I want to go over this. I'm going to talk about it more in the future, but a lot of these new energy saver LED light bulbs are full of mercury. So much so that it's actually more dangerous than when we used to have the old, like under the tongue or under the arm thermometers that contain mercury. It's actually far greater risk. So much so that the warning on them is this: If this light bulb breaks, you must immediately leave your home. That's it. And that's because the mercury is a vapor and it will be in the air and you will be breathing that in without seeing it. So what I would love you to do are not purchase these new. Now you can buy Energy Saver light bulbs. That's okay. And I'll get you the specific name in a coming Friday review. But you want to stay away from the ones that contain the larger amount of mercury in case they were ever to break. You just don't want that potential of danger on your hands. And it is absolutely that dangerous. Mercury poisoning can lead to death. And for sure, neurological-based issues. You don't want that around your kids. You don't want it around yourself. So I just wanted to kind of give that as an aside. I know it's not something that you're going to be using or touching all the time, but better not to worry about a bulb exploding or dropping or anything like that in your house. Just not worth it. All right. Next one is this. Tea bags. Believe it or not, tea bags. What do they contain? They can contain lead. Here's why. So this goes for herbal supplements. This goes for herbal teas. Any herbs in the world can contain a little bit of lead. I want to give a little bit of an aside on this. We're getting a little too frightened and scared of this whole Proposition 65 thing they have in California. California likes to be a little bit different, and I love California, so I'm not putting down California. But they go overboard sometimes. They can go fairly overboard in their legislature. So what started out as a great thing, meaning like in hotels and products, you want to warn people if there's a lot of lead in that product or any heavy metal that could cause birth defects for pregnant women. Not really general population, but in pregnant women. And it's important. You don't want any neurological defects, of course. I'm the last person who actually recommends that for sure. But here's where we have to get careful. We're talking about parts per billion, not even parts per million. And the dosage is so low that you would actually get more lead by eating spinach or oftentimes eating the green apples. But they don't have to label the food, but they need to label anything that's put in a box or a bag and that contains tea leaves or herbal supplements. So if you're going with a great functional medicine brand, there's going to be a little bit of minor lead in it. Now that might sound scary. It's also why we don't recommend herbal supplements to women that are pregnant or nursing as a just in case. Most likely, never an issue, but it's just a just in case. But for regular people, you're getting more of that. Literally walking outside in a major city, you're going to breathe in more. You really will. So I don't want people to be overly worried about Prop 65. Believe me, you know I'd be the first person to sound the alarm, without a doubt. But I'm not going to be an alarmist for things that are not a major deal. And here's why. Lead is a natural occurring metal in our environment. Just like zinc, just like copper, just like all of the other ones that we do need. But the problem is this, is that at a high dose, it absolutely can cause birth defects. So we need to be worried about it. But for your average person, parts per billion, well, that's what happens when you grow things in soil. Soil contains minerals and some natural metals, right? It's basically one and the same. I mean, we're really drawing straws over minerals and metals, right? So what we're saying, though, is that this is going to naturally occur. Let's not get overly worried about it. Let's just purchase from a good functional medicine-based brand, such as a Thorne, such as a Design, such as an Integrative. Of course, our brand, Equilibrium Nutrition, Biomatrix. There's some great brands out there. They're doing their homework. They're making sure these pass heavy metal. Some of them aren't going to pass in California, or they're just going to label it because, again, it comes from the earth. So we're always going to get a little bit. What we have to watch for, though, are companies, and again, I mean no offense by this, that are manufacturing their products in China, because that's the wild card. It could actually be tainted with a huge amount of lead. And we've seen that now when people purchase supplements at certain, I'm not going to talk negatively about certain nutritional supplement stores, but you've heard about them in the news, right? They make the headlines because they're tainted, and the supplements are coming from China. Now, again, I did one of my internships in China. I love China. I think it's great. Here's the problem. Now, I don't love all aspects of China, but when I was there and I enjoyed my time there, I enjoyed the doctors I met with, I enjoyed the people I worked with, but there is some serious pollution-based issues, and there's some serious lead in the environment to a far greater degree that we allow in the United States and certainly in Europe and Australia. So anyway, what am I trying to say? Get products that are manufactured in Europe, the United States, or Australia. That's basically it. Okay, and then you'll be safe. I did want to give that warning, though. All right, another one is this. And believe it or not, again, this is way overlooked, and it is the amount of mercury you are getting from your fish. So there are a lot of people out there who are eating a lot of fish because they don't want to eat meat, and they want to get their protein, and they've heard the great benefits of omega-3s. All of that is absolutely true. The problem is this. There are some fish out there that are so contaminated with mercury that it's essentially not even worth it. So what I want to say is don't omit the fish in your diet. If you're eating fish, I don't have a problem with that. And the truth is that you need your omega-3s. And that's because I've run over 1,000 omega-3 tests. And I can tell you that the only people that I've seen have the adequate amount of omega-3 are either those that are supplementing with 2 to 3 grams a day, or they're eating sardines, mackerel, wild salmon, or trout. That's it. And anchovies can go in there as well. Those are the higher omega-3. Now, there are a lot of people, though, trying to get their omega-3s from the larger fish, which, yes, they have omega-3s, but they are not worth it because of the amount of mercury that they have. And we test for mercury as well on our hair tissue mineral analysis. You can test it by urine. You can test it in the blood. You can test it different ways. We do it simple, right? We have people do an at-home hair tissue mineral analysis. So here's the thing, though. Tuna is the most predominantly consumed, I would say, fish, because a lot of people are eating sushi and they're eating tuna sushi. Well, you are getting a lot of mercury. So here's what I recommend. If you run a lab and you find you're not high in mercury, great. Let's not push it, though. Let's keep tuna to once per month. I always give you exactly what I recommend in my practice, right? So you could literally have daily of the smaller fish, the sardines, the mackerel, the anchovy. And then when you look at a fish like salmon, it's not the smallest fish, but it's a vegetarian-based fish. It's not eating other types of fish. So it's not building up the mercury in its body. So that's why typically wild salmon can be a great choice. Okay, here's what we need to look at, though, as well. Besides tuna, a lot of people love swordfish. A couple things about swordfish. The parasites in swordfish, the worms, is astronomical. Unless that fish is frozen, you want it frozen to kill those parasites for at least 3 days. It takes 3 days typically is what I've read in the research. And then you want that cooked fully through because it's quite a dirty fish. And the other part is it's high in mercury. So between the parasites and worms and the mercury, swordfish is just off my list. I tell people just not to eat it, not the fish that you want to be eating. So we have swordfish, we have tuna on our list. What else? Chilean sea bass. Chilean sea bass, if it's a larger one, can have a greater amount of mercury. Depends on the size of that fish as well. How long has it lived? How much time has it had to accumulate mercury from the oceans and other fish? That's important to look at. A couple other ones that people aren't eating too much of, at least in the United States, but that's bluefish and that's shark. Those are a couple others. And again, you can look at my omega-3 list. I did a show on this before. So simply go to stephencabral.com/podcasts, and you can type in actually mercury, and you'll find the higher levels of mercury in fish. All right, just a couple more today. This is going to sound crazy, but there's a couple with cadmium. And we worry about cadmium with people with thyroid-based issues. So if you are someone that has Hashimoto's or you're someone that has lower thyroid, we look at cadmium toxicity. We actually run it on our complete thyroid test. Complete thyroid test is an amazing test, very overlooked. And cadmium is also tested for on the hair tissue mineral analysis. So what is it? Well, contained in 2 common foods that people are eating all the day. And that's this: cacao powder, or just cocoa powder or chocolate, and coffee, right? So what do? Well, we need to make sure we're going with a clean brand of coffee and chocolate. But either way, chocolate is going to contain cadmium because that's part of its natural constitution, basically, of coffee and of cacao. Now, it's a little higher than other food, but it's in there. So what do we need to do? Well, one, we don't want to go overboard on coffee. I know there's a lot of studies out there that people like to quote about their 12 cups of coffee per day, but I can assure you, whenever you take anything that far, it's not going to be good for you. You can, again, cherry pick any study in the world that you want, but if you're ramping up your sympathetic nervous system to that degree by, drinking that much coffee, not a great idea, okay? So it's always somewhere in the middle. It's definitely never to the poles. And the other part is, cacao. You're doing a little bit of chocolate, no problem. No big deal. You're doing a lot of chocolate, it becomes a big deal, right? Because then we get these natural things building up and up and up. Another big one is this. So I'm going to move on from those. I don't want to disappoint anyone. You can still do your coffee. You can still do a little bit of chocolate. Let's just not go to overboard. Calcium, right? calcium pills. A lot of people are chewing on calcium, the chewable ones. I'm not talking about a clean calcium. Again, use any brand in the world that you want. We do a Cal Mag. I take it daily. It's a great, great product. I simply take it with dinner. Super easy. But a lot of people are chewing on calcium pills, right? Well, here's the thing with calcium pills. They can contain lead. Same thing with chewable Tums or products like that. Antacids, they can contain lead and aluminum. You do not want to be chewing these things up and putting them into your system. And again, they add up over time. Terrible for the nervous system. Terrible for the brain. And when we're talking about anti-aging, we're talking about it from a young age it starts, right? We're talking about the accumulation. It's why I'm so big on doing a seasonal detox. We need to remove these things from our body. And to be honest, the truth is I would do a heavy metal detox once a year. Even after you get rid of it, I would just keep binding up and getting rid of those things on a yearly basis. I really would. I'll link up everything today. Let's look at what today's show notes page is. It's stephencabral.com/1028. I'll at least put in the hair tissue mineral analysis. I'll put in the complete thyroid lab. I will put it in the CalMag that I spoke about, and I will put in the heavy metal detox, which we recommend. A couple great brands that we have linked up in that heavy metal detox. So again, I practice what I preach. These are all things that I recommend in my practice. I want to pass on to you. All right, just one or two more that I wanted to give you. A lot of people are looking at rice and the source of arsenic, right? Another thing in your kitchen that you might find. Well, I'm just going to keep it this way. I've done a whole show on arsenic. So if you want to go to stephencabral.com/podcast and type in arsenic, you can find that on the rice that I recommend. Yes, the rice isn't containing the arsenic itself. It happens from the contaminated groundwater for the most part. So a couple brands that I do recommend are the Lotus brand and the Lundberg brand. Those are great low arsenic-based rice. So big fan of that. And another one that I have to give you because you know that I recommend all the time, the gluten-free, dairy-free pancakes that I make pretty much every weekend, 3 out of 4 weekends for my girls on Sunday morning. I usually have family over, cousins over, friends over, and we'll make a big wild Maine blueberry pancake or waffles. And that's gluten-free and it's dairy-free, and I can make them vegan as well just by substituting the egg with a smashed banana. So I make these basically every weekend, and part of the recipe calls for baking powder, baking powder is what it calls for. Well, most baking powder has aluminum in them, right? So if we have aluminum, now look at all the sources. You can get it from your deodorant, from your pans, from your tap water. I mean, it starts to add up. It honestly does. And so that's why I just urge you, there's simple one-for-one substitutions. And you can go to your local Whole Foods or Sprouts or what's another big one, Wegmans, or you can order it online if you want. And all you're going to type in is aluminum-free baking powder. Whole Foods makes an aluminum-free one, and then there's another one that I'm thinking of right now. It comes in a red and silver container. I'm going to type it in right now for you. I'm not good at doing typing and talking at the same time, but I want to get this for you so that you have that information before you go on today's podcast. And it's going to pop right up. It is called Rumford, RUMFORD. That is the one that we use. It's aluminum-free baking powder, says it right on it. How do they know? Well, they test it, right? Just like we do third-party testing on our omega-3 fish oil, right? So make sure there's no mercury in it, right? Because we're getting fish oil, well, we're getting it from pollock and other small fish. But we lab test. So good companies, like let's say Rumford, is going to lab test their product to make sure that it's aluminum-free. So again, just a big advocate. These are of just making the easy switches. These are super simple switches of filtering your tap water, of when you are pregnant, not using a lot of herbal-based supplements or any at all unless needed. It's not going overboard for the coffee or the chocolate. It's making sure you don't use light bulbs that are loaded with mercury. It's using pans that are not aluminum-based pans, right? Using flatware that isn't lead-based. So these are all just important, easy switches for you. You can switch from tuna to wild salmon. You can start to eat a little bit more sardines for your omega-3s if you're willing to do that. Less of the swordfish. So, again, all of it takes time. It adds up slowly over time. But, again, time is what we have. And over decades, it could be the difference. And honestly, could be the difference. We can never point to it exactly. But it could be the difference between living a long, healthy life, or a life that potentially has more autoimmune, more Alzheimer's, more cancer, more MS and neurological-based issues, headaches, migraines, etc. So I want the best for you. I truly do. And hopefully today's podcast was helpful. As always, if it was, please do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. Are you ready to heal yourself and then go on to heal others? If so, the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute can help you discover proven functional medicine protocols that blend the best of 7 different healing disciplines from around the world. I personally share with you the exact handouts and protocols I use in my private practice that enable people to get well, lose the weight, and live longer, stronger. I want to pass this information on to the next generation of health coaches, and that is exactly why I created IHP. We are the future of the health coaching industry, and the skills and knowledge you will learn will make you an in-demand certified health coach anywhere in the world. Although we have many medical professionals taking the IHP certifications, no experience is necessary, and half our members have no previous health certifications. At the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, our motto is a health coach in every home. Our goal is that you take this knowledge and then share it with family, friends, loved ones, your community, or in a practice where you create a career you love and can be proud of. The global IHP community is filled with some of the most kind and caring people in the world, and we can't wait to welcome you into our world soon. For more information or to set up a discovery call with one of our IHP Health Coach graduates, simply head over to integrativehealthpractitioner.org.